Hello, everyone, and welcome. So, you did it. You provided me with the questions that you had about our paper. Even if you all had similar questions, there are some good ones in there and some that I knew were coming. So, you did a great job. I appreciate that. So, first of all, I gave you a very open assignment for the papers. And part of that was because people have often told me in the past that they don't like to be told what to write, they want to choose. And then when I saw your questions, they are like, can you give me more specific guidance on where to go with this? And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up for you what I have put up in the past as the assignment. And you can choose one of those more specific assignments if you'd like, or you could just write generally about some sort of concept or idea that you've read about that you think you really understand and want to explore. To give you an idea of what these other three options look like. And you can look at this as sort of having four options for the paper. Obviously, option A is write about a concept or idea that you like in any way that you like and persuade me that you understand, demonstrate to me that you understand that concept or idea. Okay. This option B will be to compare and contrast Aristotle, Cicero, Quintilian, and the Sophists during the ancient Greek times. Option C is going to be to talk about the relationship of power and how it pertains to rhetoric and how it changed between the Holy Roman Republic, or I'm sorry, the Holy Roman, yeah, the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. Okay. And then last but not least, a little bit general still, but not as general, which is to tell me how rhetoric was viewed and what rhetoric was doing during the medieval period. Now, some of you specifically asked if you could write about the medieval period. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that you could, and I wanted to put it in there somehow for you. I will be posting these on the assignments page of Blackboard. So don't feel like you have to go back and rewind and rewatch that, and that's all the direction you're getting. You will have more. The second thing I wanted to tell you is something that actually is up, which is the rubric. That will tell you exactly how I'm grading these papers. Now, I do say that the papers need to be between 3 and 5 pages, and that's an absolute minimum, that 3. So you want to make sure that you write more than the 3. Okay, but you don't need to go crazy, and certainly you can do any of these in under 5. Okay. Another question that I saw was what kind of sources and how many sources do you need? Well, that's going to depend. For this paper, since we're dealing with only the Greeks, the Romans, and the medieval period, I would suggest to you that you not use the textbook, that you not use lectures, and that if you need to use a peer-reviewed journal, sure, go ahead. You do not want to use a website from someone else's rhetoric class. I'll know it. And by that I mean that when you cite it um, in your reference sheet, I will see that it comes from my friend's lectures at the University of Hawaii or whatever it is that's up, and you took it off of their slides. These are not the best sources. Okay, the best sources, especially with such a limited scope of what we're working with, is to get the most primary sources you can get. The quantity does not matter so much as the quality of it. So, if you have, let's say that, for example, that you chose to write about St. Augustine and his role with rhetoric during the medieval period, you probably won't have anything other than a couple or a few Augustine resources. And yes, they're available. They're available online. People have translated it. People have translated it and edited it for us because obviously it wasn't written in English. So everything is cited as a translation that you find for example, on Christian doctrine, the confessions, all of that. Now, you're like, oh, but it's in my textbook. Yes, a part of it is in your textbook. The reason why I say don't use the textbook is because the textbook is edited down so that you only get a portion of what has been written by any of these scholars on the subject matter. Okay, so it's my job to fill you in with more stuff. And it's your job to prove to me that you can go out and find information independent of what I give you in this class. And it's actually really easy for this paper because you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, I have to trudge to the library. No, you don't. Okay. Almost all classical works I have ever sought out have been available online. So I believe that Harvard has a philosophy library. I believe that Cambridge has a philosophy library. And all of these link to the original works. They were edited by somebody, but they link to those original works. And so I don't want to see you citing the Cambridge Library of Philosophy. I want to see you citing Aristotle, edited by so-and-so, available on that website. And the APA handbook tells you how to cite that. Look for quote unquote edited books. Okay. And use the website as the title of the book. That's, well, not the www part, but the title of the website uses the title of the book. That is your best way to cite those things. Okay. So I hope that helps with what I'm looking for in evidence as to how many sources you need. You need as many sources as you need to demonstrate that you understand the concept. For some concepts or ideas or some answers to the questions that I'm going to pose for these options for the paper, you might only use one source. I mean, yes, Augustine wrote like 12 books, but really the one that we are most concerned with is on Christian doctrine. But you might find another one that he wrote that's really good. Or maybe you're not just sticking to Augustine during the Middle Ages and you want to get works from some of the other writers that we've been introduced to, also available online. Okay, so I hope that answers the question of how many sources you need. What I really need is evidence that you understand what's being said. You can give me quotations from these people all day long, just a string of quotations, but I have no idea if you understand that concept or not, or what that author is saying. And so that brings me to another question you all asked, which is, am I supposed to just give you information, or is this a research paper, or am I supposed to give you sort of my thoughts on it? And the answer is both. You want to go out and find that evidence, and then you want to be able to communicate to me that you understand what that evidence says. So if you want to look at it this way, every single paragraph can start off with, your claim, as it should, which we call a thesis statement, maybe. I don't know if they're still teaching this in English or not. I have no idea what they're teaching in English anymore, but back in my day, we would have a thematic statement known as a thesis for every paragraph. Okay, so there was the thesis for the paper, and the influence of Saint Augustine on rhetoric during the Middle Ages. Okay, that's the title of my paper. I'm demonstrating my knowledge for you about that. Every single main point has its own claim, its own thesis. I'm going to have 3 main points. First, I'm going to talk about the role of rhetoric in the church. Second, I'm going to talk about the 3 purposes for language or for rhetoric in the church. And then third, I'm going to talk about the 3 levels of style from Cicero and how they impacted Augustine and what Augustine said we should do with it. Those are my 3 thesis statements that support the thesis statement of explaining Augustine's impact on rhetoric in the medieval period, right? Then each paragraph does the same thing. So my first point was sort of what was the status of rhetoric at the time? One of my paragraphs is definitely going to be starting off with rhetoric was considered evil in the time of the medieval period. Now, this may not be one paragraph. It could be a couple paragraphs, but that's my thesis statement for this section. And I'm going to write about the fact that it was used by the pagans, the fact that Satan was the first one to use it, the fact that that it aroused the passions, and the fact that if the devil uses it to convince people to go to evil, then we should use it in the church to convince people to convert. Those are my four, sub ideas underneath that thesis of what was the status of rhetoric during the Middle Ages, which supports the thesis of why was, or I'm sorry, what was the status, which supports the thesis of Augustine's role, or Augustine's relationship, or the relationship of rhetoric to the medieval period as Augustine saw it, or the relationship to the church. Whichever my main thesis was, I don't remember anymore. So I would do that for each of those sections. Okay, so my next section is how it was to be used in the church. I believe that was my second main point. How rhetoric was to be used in the church. I would come up with those three, to teach, to preach, to convert. Those three things that St. Augustine said we can use rhetoric for in the church. And then I would talk about those. And every single paragraph or main idea, even if it takes up a couple of paragraphs, is going to start off with that claim, that thesis statement, and then have supporting material and explanation. And then it's going to close and transition to the next main point that I have. I don't know if that's helping or not, but the structure is actually pretty easy. I say for me, because I learned how to outline before I learned how to write, and I don't know that any of you know how to outline. So what I'm going to do is provide you with examples of some of the papers that are these other kinds of papers. So maybe I'll find one that is about comparing the ancient Greeks. Maybe I'll find one about the medieval period. Maybe I'll find one about the Romans. I'm not really sure which ones I'll find because it all depends on what's on my computer. But I will go ahead and provide those to you. Will these guarantee you an A? No. Will these help you? Absolutely. These are not perfect papers by any means. So how do you get an A? Well, first of all, I would rather you learn than care about your grade. And by the way, when you learn something, when you're writing, you usually end up with an A, which is fantastic. Everybody's happy. But I will say that if you use the rubric, go through it, check off what you did, see what ranking that'll give you. Did you do most of it really well? You'll get an A. Okay. The second thing is looking at those examples so you could see what I have dealt with in the past, or how people have come up with things in the past and how they've structured them. And the third thing that will help you is by listening carefully to what I'm saying in this video. Okay. Use APA style. Whoops, sorry, just dropped something. Use APA style. Okay. Whole paper, APA style, references, title page, the whole damn kit and caboodle. You don't need to do an abstract though. The second thing is it is 3 to 5 pages. No less and no more. Somewhere in there. Be more than 3 and less than 5. Okay. And that's partially to cut down on your work as well as to cut down on mine. Because remember, I have to read them all. Okay. I'm clearly a glutton for punishment. I think I hate myself, but I love reading these things. They're always interesting and most of the time very, very good. So I'm not worried. So that's how you're going to go ahead and get an A. Now, some of you have asked, when is this paper due? And can I turn it in early and get some feedback? And the answer to both of those questions is this: it is due by the last day of class. So, dead day, as we refer to it, right? That Friday before finals start, when you guys are supposed to be studying, but most of you are out partying that day. Actually, I think it's Thursday evening you guys go party because dead day you're sleeping, but I'm not really positive how that works anymore. We had dead day, and I was in a computer lab playing International Interactive Dungeons and Dragons on the computer. So, back before they had pictures, we're talking like green screen on black, green print on black, and a dollop. Okay, but that's how I rolled back in my day, obviously. And I certainly was not working on my papers or studying like I should have been. So dead day is the day it's due. And it is due that day before 5 p.m. Why? So that I have your finals week to grade everything. I would prefer that you turn your papers in earlier than that, or that you at least turn your first paper in and then you could turn your second paper in, at that date. That's fine. I would prefer that. I'm not saying you have to, but I would prefer that. I think it would be helpful to you. All right. Nobody wants to write 2 rhetoric papers in a week or whatever it is that you guys do these days. Don't tell me you do it overnight. That's horrible. Don't do that. But the second paper is much more complex. So you're going to have to wait for some instructions on that until, probably in about a week or 2. I'm going to give that to you right before spring break. I'll give you that second assignment. So if that's okay, I just needed to wait a little while. But it's going to be what is essentially described in the syllabus. It is a rhetorical criticism of something that you've seen recently that you really want to talk about, you're really interested in or intrigued by. To give you an example of what that second paper looks like, I'm going to use my husband and I last night and the night before. When he comes home from work, and he works from basically 10 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, and sometimes longer, because he manages a pizza restaurant. So there's, things that go wrong. But when he gets home, every night we watch about an hour of television together. And that's just our way of rewinding and coming back from the day. Okay, I don't go anywhere, but he does. So we sit on the couch and we watch TV. And 2 nights ago, we were like, oh, what are we going to watch? And he said, I have not seen that movie Searching for Bobby Fischer in forever. Let's watch that. And I'm like, movies from like 1993, I think, or something. I said, okay. So we sat down, we watched it. I had seen it before, but it had been so long, I'd forgotten about it. And I was like, I like that movie a lot more than I thought I did. It's a pretty simplistic message, that parents should not stifle the creativity of their children because that makes them not enjoy things, and they should have variety, and they shouldn't be obsessed with winning because that makes them less humane people. Okay. And it's filled with stars, stars from now that back then were like barely a blip on the screen, right? But now we've got big stars out of them. And then the next night, which was last night, we were like, what are we going to watch? And I said, you got me on this chess kick. And you don't know this, but there is a chessboard. It's made of, I know I'm going to get this wrong. I bought it from one of the caves here. It's carved not out of marble, but out of something else. Point is, I have it, it's displayed, and in addition, somebody found like a statue of I can't tell you how big it is, about that big, a statue of a black knight, which is one of the pieces from chess, and that's also on display in my house. Yes, I love chess. And one of the reasons why I love it is because I suck at it. And my husband will just kick my butt left and right. And I've been playing it since I was 8 years old. I'm just so bad at it. It's horrible. So he goes, all right, so what do we want to watch then? I said, I was thinking Queen's Gambit. which is, of course, a popular, more popular and more recent television show, limited series on Netflix. So we got on and we started watching it, and we haven't gotten through all of the series yet. Like I said, it's a limited series, so I think it's like 7 or 8 episodes, sort of in that British fashion of doing a short set of episodic um, storytelling. And we were watching it, and we're I think we're on like number 5 of 7. We're getting close to the end, whatever it is. But I said to him last night, I was like, oh, I've just figured out that really this is just the Bobby Fischer story, the searching for Bobby Fischer story, I should say. It got the same exact ideas, except they made the main character a female. And part of the reason for that was to show the battle of women trying to get through into male organizations, male driven jobs, etc., which was a huge problem in the 1960s and 70s when this takes place. It's still a problem, but it really demonstrates that women can be intelligent and logical and all those things that you need to be. And it also showed that you could be maternal, you could be feminine, you can be all those things and still be logical and play chess. Okay, so this is very much a sort of gender role kind of thing, while at the same time showing that if you don't allow children to be artistic and to explore their talents, if you try to quash them, then what you're doing is quashing them as people, their personalities. So again, same message, total differently. And my husband looked at me and he goes, "Can we just watch one thing where you don't give me an analysis afterwards?" And I said, "But I'm going to have one in my head." He said, "I know you're going to have one in your head. You don't have to share it." Okay, so this time you have to share it. Okay, and I know most of you don't sit there watching your television shows and watching your movies and the political ads or speech or something. You don't sit there doing that and going, "Boy, this really needs to have a rhetorical criticism written about it." Okay, but it's just the way I think. There is a golden statue of Donald Trump that was at CPAC, the conservative convention this weekend. That has all sorts of rhetorical implications that harken back to the Bible, that harken back to materialism. The idea that it's gold because Donald Trump has everything gold. Okay, if you've ever been in his apartment, I don't know why I casually said that, except that I've had opportunities. So it's very gold. It's very ugly. It kind of makes this piggening up here. It turns that into an entire New York apartment. It's ugh. By the way, have I met him a long time ago in passing, and I don't need to repeat it. But I'm from that area of the country. I'm from the area of New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. I've been to Atlantic City a lot. I've seen the destruction of Atlantic City after its heyday. And so I have different feelings about Donald Trump that are very personal and have to do with my personal experiences that have nothing to do with him being president. My husband, who's from Arkansas, has the same feelings about Bill Clinton and Hillary. And I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but the point is that our experiences are very different. And so when it was Hillary versus Trump, you would think that we would clash and disagree about who to vote for, but we didn't. But we were able to share with each other our own perspectives, our own interpretation of what we believed they were doing and saying based on the context that we knew these people from. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing in your rhetorical criticism. So it's going to be your ideas and your thoughts. Now, I wanted to look through because I think the next question I have to answer is, when is the paper due? I told you when it's due. And you asked when you would have to turn it in for me to look at it. I'm going to say a minimum of 2 weeks is what I need. And here's why. I will look at it. I will give you thoughts and ideas about it. I'm not going to grade it. then I'll send it back to you within a week. And it's my anticipation then that you'll have a week, whether you need it or not, to make changes, to improve it, to look at what I said about it. And hopefully that'll be helpful. Okay. That's sort of the idea. So if you, let's say, for example, that you plan to turn it in, I don't know, October 15th. October? I've lost my freaking mind. March 15th. Like, it's last semester. March 15th. I'm just picking a date out of my head. Okay, let's say you planned to turn it in by March 15th, but you want me to look at it. I would need it today to look at it, get it back to you, and have you get it back to me by then. So it's up to you when you want to turn it in and have me look at it, so that you can fix it and then send it back into me whenever it's ready. Okay. Obviously, if you're going to do this where you're thinking, well, I'm not going to turn it in until the very, 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 very last day, I believe that it would be May 14th, I believe, is the last day of classes, which means that, oh, wait, or is that the last day of finals? That's the last day of finals. Okay, so the last day of classes is May 7th, which means I would need that paper by April 23rd. That's 2 weeks before the final draft would be due. Okay, so that's if you want to do a rough draft. You don't have to. That is not required. But if you want to, certainly willing to let it happen. All right. If you want due dates, like, well, when would you recommend that we do them? How far should we space them out? I would say, the paper, the first paper immediately after spring break, or roughly a little bit after spring break, and the second paper, when it's due at the end of the semester, is fine. Some people work better with those kinds of dates. So, I don't know, I would use that as a general principle, sort of a mid-semester and then the end of the semester. Okay. I am looking on Blackboard for more questions. Yes, you will get examples, as I said. And somebody just asked, like, what's the best advice that I could give you to make sure that you do well on the paper? And the best advice I can give you is something you've heard a lot, I'm sure. If you haven't, you should have. So here we go. Sit down. It's going to be big. The number one thing that you can do to do well on this paper is to reread your paper. You would be astonished at the things you wrote and you had no idea you wrote it. Sentences that don't make sense, sentences that aren't sentences, words that are really convoluted, paragraphs where you just repeat the same thing 5 times in 5 different sentences. You name it, it's there. Okay. And that's not even talking about misspellings or typos or punctuation problems or paragraph problems, etc., etc. Okay. Reread your paper. That is the number one thing that will help you. By the way, this is true for all papers, in all classes, forever, or papers you give to your boss when you graduate and you start working. Okay. Somebody else asked if there were specific sections to split the paper into. Not for this first one. I mean, be organized, obviously. Have some sort of organizational progression in there that I can see. But no, you don't need specific sections. You will, however, need specific sections for the second paper, which is why I'm probably going to wait a little while before I get that. Is there anything beyond the book that you can use? I think I've already told you that. And any other questions I've missed? I think I covered them all. Some people have asked what style I should use here, and I'm hoping I answered that already. I think that's the same as the Is it a research paper? Is it an opinion paper? Or what is it? I'm hoping that I answered that. It is a paper intended for you to demonstrate to me that you understand a concept, idea, or somebody's writing, or the role of rhetoric in a certain time period, etc. Okay. Hopefully that helps. All right, if there's any more questions, put them up on the same board, dear professor, and I will hopefully get to them. And if I'm letting one sit there like I did from February 8th, sorry about that, ladies. I just never got the notification, I guess. If you want to, send me a text message and say, hey, there's stuff on the discussion board that I'd like you to get to today, and I will do that. All right, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, all to my inbox, mail, or text me. That's what I prefer. Call me, or let me know if you need a Zoom meeting. The other thing is I think I said that I would start offering Zoom sessions that I know we don't have a set time for you to be available for a Zoom session, and some of you are not. I'm looking for a pen. Some of you are not available. I certainly can't coordinate us being all available at the same time. So here's what I want to tell you. This week, right now, it's Monday, the 1st of March. On Thursday, which would be March 4th, I believe, I will be available, and I will turn on a Zoom session from 1 until 3. Okay, so what you need to do is send me a text or an email that says, I want to join the Zoom session. And if you can't join it at 1 o'clock, just say, I'm going to hop on at 2, or whatever you want to do. And this is a good place for us to discuss and bounce ideas, ask questions, talk to our peers, get to see them, I guess, too. So we can pretend like we're social people. So this Thursday, March 4th, from 1 to 3, and then Friday, which will be March 5th, from, let's do like 3 to 5. Now, if you're like, well, gee, I work until 5 every day. Thanks a lot, Dudash. All you have to do is send me an email or a text and say, okay, I can't make either of those times, but I really want to get in on a session, and I'll plan one for us on like a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday. Okay. So let me know about that. And if you just send me an email asking me for the link, tell me which session you want. I'll go ahead and schedule those sessions. I certainly am not going to sit here by myself, look at my computer for 2 hours, but hopefully we won't have a problem with that at all, because I think if you're not going to show up, you're not going to ask for an invite, so there's not a problem. Or if you're going to show up late, let me know that, and so I'll know that you're coming. All right, that's it on the paper. I hope that helped. I'm going to go post those things that I promised you right now, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Stay safe. Stay well. Reread your papers.